Hi, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar, the last one of 2024. My name is Brandon Searle, and I'll be the moderator of our webinar today. Before we get started, just want to give a quick overview of what we're doing and why we're here, and then I'll hand it off to Landon to present the presentation today. So again, welcome. Thank you for joining. I know a lot of folks are out on holidays, but it's great that you're able to attend. Reminder, this is being recorded and we will share the recording and the presentation with folks who registered afterwards. I'm going to do a quick intro to the Offsite Construction Research Center at UNB, as well as Building Transformations, which is an association who has partnered with us to deliver the webinars. I'll then introduce Langdon Lynch from DPR Construction. He'll present on DPR's strategy and how they view prefab. We'll then have a moderated Q&A and discussion, and then wrap up and highlight our January speaker as well. So a quick overview on how to use this. I'm sure folks are familiar with Microsoft Teams now, but you can submit questions at any time using the Q&A feature in the control bar. If you have difficulty hearing, just check your speaker settings or audio settings. If there's any other problems, please tell us in the Q&A feature. So you'll see both a chat and a Q&A feature. We're keeping an eye on the Q&A feature. So if you have any other problems, you can mention that, and my colleague Roshni will get in touch. Reminder again, all sessions are being recorded and will be made available on the Offsite Construction Research Center and Building Transformations website. And sorry, quickly, as mentioned, there's a moderated Q&A after Langdon presents. So if you can submit your questions using the Q&A feature, I'll make sure that we get to those at the end. And if we have an abundance of questions and can't get to them all, Langdon has offered to type them over email, and we'll send those out with the slides later. So quick background on UNB. I see a lot of familiar names in attendance, but for those who don't know UNB, it's located in Fredericton, New Brunswick. The University of New Brunswick was founded in 1785 and is home to Canada's first engineering, forestry, and computer science programs, with engineering courses first being offered in 1854. Since then, UNB has grown significantly, with campuses in both Fredericton and St. John, New Brunswick, over 20 leading research institutes and centers, and over 20 world-class research chairs. In addition to the research success, UNB has been very successful in helping foster a startup community on the East Coast, has seen over 100 startup companies come out of here in the last decade, and were named Canada's most entrepreneurial university when it was last awarded in 2014. Quickly on the Offsite Construction Research Center. So we were founded through a partnership with industry in September 2018, and then became an official center on campus in May of 2019. We are governed by an industry-led executive board, of which 12 private sector industry members from throughout the construction value chain participate and help with our strategic direction. And in 2022, as we were coming out of the pandemic, we went through a strategic planning exercise where we identified our 4 core values of being industry relevant, focused on collaboration, excellence, and integrity. And we like to mention this because, what's really embedded in everything we do at the OCRC is around that triple helix model of combining government, academia, and industry to move the construction sector forward. So we're just past 5 years at the center, and we're continuing to grow. Over the last 5 years, we've really focused on these 3 core areas of research. So one is process and productivity improvement and digital technology implementation, which kind of overlap, as well as lab testing services. And we've recently completed the training, I suppose, and commissioning of our new equipment for building envelope testing lab, which will focus for now on air testing and water leakage. And we hope to get into other forms of testing in the future. So we're excited to be doing that in 2025. Beyond the key research services offered, we kind of have these 4 key research areas of expertise. I mentioned the first 3. The one on the far right is the benchmarking and innovation in construction. And obviously, right now, there's a huge demand for understanding the supply side of the construction sector. Do we have the labor required? Are they trained properly? Are they educated properly, etc., to deliver on housing, schools, hospitals, etc., that is needed to be built? And so we do a lot of research in that area, which will hopefully guide policy, current state of the sector, new standards, procurement strategies, etc., to be able to leverage the sector and really hopefully increase productivity in the construction sector. So in addition to the OCRC, I'll put on my building transformations hat. I sit on the board of directors here. Building Transformations is a not-for-profit organization, originally branded as Canada BIM Council, and has since rebranded over the last 5 years and has a presence across North America. Building Transformations drives the building and construction industry forward. It has many programs to serve members, including both in-person and online events, a certification program for professionals, organizations, and educational institutions, and think tanks for different segments of the construction industry, as well as the annual awards program and the annual Innovation Spotlight publication. Just a quick snapshot of the audience. So Building Transformations has over 2,000 members. You can see kind of the stakeholder groups that are represented here, and that is continuing to grow. I encourage folks attending to follow Building Transformations on LinkedIn and YouTube. I know in the last decade or so, they've hosted over 100 events across Canada and into the US. And so I encourage you to check out some of that and the speakers as well. I'd also encourage you to check out their membership going into 2025. There's a bunch of new events starting up, one in Austin, Texas, which I'll touch on in a sec, as well as a few new initiatives underway. We also have our Innovation Spotlight publication happening in March. So that's we have our Innovation Spotlight Awards. That event happened a couple weeks ago in Toronto, and then we turned that into a publication highlighting some of the most innovative projects happening across Canada and the US. Finally, just our events as of right now for 2025. We have our AGM, followed by our event in Austin, our larger kind of flagship event in Toronto in the fall of 2025, and our awards show in the fall as well. I want to thank our mission partners with Building Transformations. And then finally, thank our sponsors, the Government of Canada, specifically through ACOA, not necessarily a sponsor, but a partner, and has been very supportive of the Research Center, as well as our founding partner, OSCO Construction Group. And then lastly, I'll thank our marketing partners who are involved in all the events that we do and have been promoting it through their channels over the last 5 years. Now with that, I'm going to hand it off to Langdon. Langdon is going to present today on DPR Construction's approach to prefabrication. For those of you who aren't familiar with DPR potentially, they're one of the largest general contractors in the US, which I'm sure Langdon will touch on. And he is focused on the Northeast regional geography, I guess, for prefabrication, and he'll speak to his experience in that space. And I'll now hand it off to you, Langdon, to share your screen, turn on your video and audio, and looking forward to your presentation.
All right. Thanks, Brandon. Appreciate the time here today. As Brandon mentioned, I'm Langdon Lynch, Northeast Prefabrication Lead for DPR. I started this position around about 4 or 5 years ago now. The group has definitely expanded quite a bit, has our focus around prefabrication and just what we're doing in the construction industry as a whole. As he mentioned earlier, DPR, if you're not familiar with us, we're one of the #1 ranked building and design by Construction Magazine. We have over $9.6 billion in revenue this past year. This year, we're trending much more closer to around 12. So even in the past year, we've definitely seen a lot of growth in the market space, just around in construction in general. And just in terms of overall impact in the different core markets that we look at, we're generally concerned with advanced technology, healthcare, higher education, life sciences, and commercial projects. So the majority of those that we have seen lately here in the Northeast are around our advanced tech, our healthcare, and our higher education clients. We did have a rather large life science project and a few more are on the horizon, but those are definitely fewer and far between, as is commercial. So primarily today, I'll definitely be running you through just the overall approach to prefabrication that we are taking here at DPR, as well as some examples of some of the things that we've put in place. Here you can see just a quick list of our overall client listings, just some of the people that we've worked with in the past and are working with on some of these upcoming projects that we have currently in the hopper. So a lot of people ask, why prefabrication, right? Why are we doing this? Why are we getting into this? Why have we started? Here about 3 or 4 years ago, we had a full restructuring in terms of what are our main goals around construction that we wanted to do, our pieces of the industry that we really wanted to change, right? So we decided to come out of that and have more of a strategic focus around prefabrication, VDC, design to build, and our self-perform work group. For those of you who aren't familiar, we are a self-performing general contractor. That really means, we're going in there for our interiors, our waterproofing, our exteriors, even concrete. Anything that we feel that we can accomplish in-house, we're looking to do that. And we've partnered with the local carpenters union here, several of them here in the Northeast, to help us accomplish that mission. In addition, we've also built a national team around the prefabrication effort as a whole. This has really allowed us to come together in a way that we hadn't before, and really shows how we're not just looking at specifically, one region or one approach, but really as an enterprise, how are we pushing the industry forward with our approach to prefabrication as it relates to construction and construction projects in general. This overall team is comprised of different members that have anywhere in terms of their overall background, from VDC to project management to PXs to design teams to detailers. We tried to cover as much as possible and have specific SMEs around each one of the individual scopes that are able to dive in and help one another out as we push each one of these individual scopes forward. So with that, I'll dive in now into our overall strategy for prefabrication. So what we like to do is really understand our clients and our client base, and really get a sense from them of what is it in terms of their goals. What are they looking to accomplish with their projects, and where are they trying to get to? Our best projects for prefabrication that we've seen are those repeatable ones, where we have a portfolio of overall projects with our individual clients, where it's a almost copy paste of their buildings, right? They've got 3 or 4 in their overall plan over the next 5 to 10 years. They know exactly where they want them to go, and they know what it want it to look like. And those are the best case scenarios where we can go in and start looking at, okay, is there some overall optimization that we can see around these? Are there specific types in terms of the room layouts, the bathroom layouts, the overall building layout itself that we can identify, potentially move around a little or maybe change a little bit to be more repeatable? What we're really looking for is to get the number of individual snowflakes out of the project and get it more of something that we can do over and over and over again. And we want to meet them where they're at with that. So we try to outline this specifically with those teams and get a better understanding from them about where they're at within their own journey around their individual project goals. So with that, once we get into the actual projects themselves, we start very early on, and we try to get as far left of the line as possible with our teams, and really get them an understanding of, hey, what's out there, what potentially can be prefabricated, what's a good something good to potentially prefabricate. I feel like I say it all the time, but just because you can prefabricate something doesn't necessarily mean you should. it has to make sense from an overall cost, a schedule standpoint, as well as execution. Execution is definitely a big thing that we found here. It can be a hurdle if it's a situation where we have a team that doesn't have a lot of experience with something and doesn't have the means or understanding or even local workforce that can facilitate the individual scope or installation of that. That's where that national team comes in, where we have those SMEs that can dive in, people like myself and others that can really sit with the team and really outline the specifics around the individual prefabricated units. Moving, from the pursuit phase into SD, that's when we really start to look at those overall pricings and quotes, as well as start to integrate the individual scopes into the overall design process. The best case scenario is that we can get these things baked into the design before we're actually getting that final design set out that we're going into buyout with. From there, we really are looking at, let's track what we're doing here. We feel that if we're not keeping score, it's just for practice. So we really like to make sure that we're understanding, is this something that, yes, it worked for cost, it worked for schedule, but is it working for our field teams? Is this something that they can easily install? Is this something that makes sense in the long term? Is this something that is repeatable that we could then push forward into the next project with? And then obviously close that loop, feeding that information back into the overall database that we have on each one of these individual scopes to help us be better informed when we go to the next project and work with the next team on getting these individual scopes in place. So in terms of that early support, and what we like to do is put together just a main assessment of the project to start off with, to really dive in and say, okay, here are the individual pieces that we feel like are, out of the gate, the best case scenario for us to prefabricate at a very high level, just to get a sense from the team in terms of where are they at with it? Is this something that they feel like would make a difference? Is it something that's on the critical path that could potentially make a difference, not just for the individual scope that this prefabricated effort is associated with, but how could it also affect the project as a whole around it? Is this going to reduce some of our other lead times or open up areas for other scopes and trades to be able to get in sooner? So using this assessment, we really sit with the team and go over those individual pieces, parts, and agree to it and just say, okay, this is what we're going to do and this is how we're going to move forward on it. And a lot of things get left on the table once we go through there. We'll potentially come with 10 or 12 different ideas or different possibilities of the potential scopes for a project, and a lot of times it's only 2 or 3 or even 4 that we're coming out with on the other end. And it's really about that alignment that I feel like is setting us apart in that construction industry right now, just in terms of how we're looking at projects and how we're approaching prefabrication as a whole. So wanted to give you a couple of quick examples. I've got some more overall project examples, but to just give you kind of a sense of some of the things that we've been seeing, some of the top items around the region. We've been working very closely with a prefabricated steel manufacturer, so no hot work out on site, everything's bolted connection. We've seen really great advances around that, just in terms of number of pieces put up in a day, as well as overall costs associated with them too. Then multi-trade racking, that one's been around forever, but it's definitely something that we've seen a lot more of and that can make a big difference out on our project sites. You're talking about tons of work with the MEP trades that we can move off site ahead of time, get all racked up, and maybe even potentially put shaft walls on if we're talking something like a vertical multi-trade rack, and be able to put all of that work in place with one single pick and then have those individual connections between them. Makes things much, much easier. Some of the other pieces like our stairs, our exterior panels, doors and hardware, interior panels, things like that are just scopes that we've identified with it that we're able to do out on site that we feel like make a huge difference with what we're trying to do in terms of just, again, overall cost, schedule, and then of course safety and quality. A lot of the things that we tout on a lot of times with prefabrication is that the guys are coming to the same location every single day. It's a nice controlled environment. There's no work at height. Everything is right where they need it to be, right where they want to look for it at. And that really increases the overall quality that we're seeing out a lot of these individual prefabricated scopes. Bathroom pods, I'll go into a little bit later, but we have even developed a company in-house, I'll call it, one of our umbrella companies that produces these prefabricated bathroom pods. So this has everything inside of it, and including the paint on the walls, and in some cases, even the mirrors up and ready to go. So all of that is packaged up and sent out to site directly, where they're then installed in place before any of the rest of the MEP makes those connections. And then, of course, lastly, is just some of our large architectural features. More and more, we're seeing in some of our data center spaces that there are just these very large plenums, these very large architectural features that are being put into these larger mission critical spaces that are just really repeatable. And that's definitely one of those things that I've found I've found the most of. If I go out and I walk the site, I speak with our superintendents, our craft teams, I'm really getting the feedback from them because they are seeing some of these other prefabricated elements. And I'm asking them the question, what is it that's going to make your life easier? What is it that we could do that potentially would make things that much easier for you to complete your job at the end of the day? And that architectural feature there and that one really came out of speaking directly with those field teams. So we've really been trying to push that forward in everything we do and look for those opportunities wherever they may be. Not necessarily something that, guys who've been out there all the time are seeing. Sometimes you get blinders for these things, and having a new perspective really helps. In addition, we've started putting together overall execution documentation around these items, especially the things that we're seeing all the time and are very complex. I mentioned those multi-trade racks earlier. That I believe that execution document right now is somewhere around 30 or 38 pages, just in terms of, hey, here's what it is, here's how to lay it out, here are the specific roles and responsibilities associated with each individual member of the team that may need to execute around them in order to make this successful. So we've tried to put these together to make it as easy as possible for our teams to come up to speed quickly. We've also started developing pre-con cheat sheets around these individual scopes to better help our pre-con teams as well. It's great to have the installation and the backing, from our field teams to be able to put this in, but it also means that we have to educate our pre-con teams in order to be able to estimate this correctly, as well as buy it out correctly. And we feel that, really educating from all the way left of the line through is how we're going to, continue to see this grow. In addition, we've started creating overall smart blocks, standard detail libraries, individual model pieces that we can use in a way that help our design teams, right? As we're coming into this, if we feel or we see that they have, just a placeholder for some of these items, or individually, maybe there's not anything that has that specific detail around connections or specific heights or widths or things like that, we try to fill that gap with this virtual library that we've created. And hopefully this will continue to grow as we build out some of our other scopes. But it's something that we've seen that's really made a difference, especially on some of our larger healthcare projects with our ceiling details, to allow them to say, hey, this is that connection point that's coming in. All of the MEP around the overall floor itself can then be connected directly to that. Even if it's not the final OR assembly that may be going in, it's a great placeholder to give them a sense of just, hey, what is this going to look like? How is it going to go in there? How is it going to make those connections? So I mentioned that family of companies overall before. Just wanted to give you guys just a quick list overall of just the individual groups that we have associated with us. So Digital Building Components is our exterior wall paneling group. EIG is our electrical, low voltage electrical group. GPLA we've recently acquired and brought in to help us with overall structural engineering. They are not specifically focused on prefabrication. They can do anything from our overall structural design of the building to third-party engineering reviews. It's really just a helpful, it's a great thing to have in your back pocket, I'll say. It's definitely something that's made the difference when we come up with something, out of the box, and we're able to go to them and say, hey, what are we looking at here? Is this something that specifically we can do out of this material, or should we be looking at something else? What are those connection points, and so on? So that's been a really great addition. Our OES equipment is our trade and equipment arm, where we can go and rent tools and pick up any PPE we may need, and those are associated with the majority of our job sites. SurePods I mentioned earlier with our bathroom pods. RQ is our overall investing firm, along with WEND Ventures. VCon is our overseas design, detail, and VDC group. We do have VDC leads here in the States that are the direct reports to the project teams. These are the folks, though, that are the ones that are really helping us behind the scenes, get all those button clicks done, make sure that we have all the specific details, reviewing drawing sets, getting back overall RFIs and things back to us that are just making our lives a lot easier. That's for sure. And then View Ops is our in-field manufacturing around our equipment. So we turn that over to our teams at the end of any of our larger projects so that they have a nice visual and interactive way that they can look at all of their equipment and get their updates and warranty information or anything they may need along with it. So with that, wanted to give you guys a sense too of just how we're expanding this out. So it's not just about the prefabricated scopes themselves in terms of what our third parties, our vendors and our trade partners can do, but it's also about what we can do in-house. I mentioned the SurePods and DBC earlier along with EIG, but we also have self-perform facilities as well. Where potentially, reverse. These are our self-performed facilities that are focused on very specific individual key components that are coming out of them. Some of them are more specialized than others. Some just haven't had a chance to do some of what the others have done at this point. But we've set this up across the country. Generally, it's one in each region, and we've put them in strategic locations that are within a day's journey of anywhere within the region is the goal. We really want to be able to make sure that, what we're providing is not only something that's great for quality and safety, but it can also make it there on time. Definitely, we want to keep lead times in mind with all of that, but hopefully this gives you a sense of just how much we've really thought through how to execute this overall prefabricated effort. Along with that, these are our subsidiary companies I was mentioning before, EIG, SurePods, and DBC. All of them, again, strategically located around the country so that we could potentially get those products to wherever we need to within a day's travel. So I keep mentioning DBC here. Wanted to take a second and just kind of give you guys a quick overview of what they do, kind of what that facility looks like. If it's okay, I'd love to play just a quick video to give you guys a sense of what that facility looks like. Hold on one second.
I'll turn on my mic to let you know when we see it working.
Sorry, man. This is the one I didn't have right at my fingertips. One second.
Yeah, no worries.
Here we go. Okay. All right, let me skip through since I missed that opening part there. So overall, the main line here that you see, we've got roll formers set up throughout. What we do is we take all of our modeling information around the studs directly from the model, pull it out. All of it's labeled, has individual IDs, specifics around where it goes, what panel it's located with. We're rolling, stamping all of that ahead of time, pulling that out. And then, of course, it's going directly onto our overall tables. You see that there with the 9 framing lines that we have set up in that facility to really facilitate overall production, no matter what the need may be. Depending on where we're at and what's going on, these guys really have the capability to ramp up and provide whatever's needed. So it's all the way from just regular AMC panels all the way through to our overall finished panels with sheathing on them. So we can really take it from backing all the way through to our overall finishes and get specifically what we need depending on whatever the project may call for. So here, and I'll speed this along here real quickly just to kind of give you guys an overall view. But outside space as well. So just a ton of space there for us to be able to move things out as things get done and keep our lines moving along. So next up is SurePods. So I mentioned that one as well earlier. Oh, okay. Hey, look at that. It's working. So just to kind of give you a sense of what that looks like kind of coming off the truck and going into place. We recently had a project, I think I'm going to go over here in just a second, in downtown DC, where we had over 400 of these go into place. And we had 3 to 4 a day. It really helped the overall construction schedule and just the main quality and punch list of these overall items going into these bathrooms. On average, it saves almost 400 hours just in punch list items per bathroom that we've seen. So just a huge boon to the site. In general with moving to a prefabricated modular bathroom of this nature. EIG, I don't have a cool video for EIG, unfortunately, but to give you guys a sense, wanted to at least show you some of the things that they're doing here. Prefabricated electric rooms, electrical stands, low voltage wiring harnesses, interior wall device packages. That's you name it. These guys are able to do it. We've got UL listings on quite a few items right now, and they're looking to continue to expand out and just make that modular piece of what they do just larger and larger and larger, so that we're just providing that much more incentive and just overall help to our project teams in general. So with that, I wanted to jump over quickly to some of our case studies and just kind of give you guys a sense of what we've been doing, and a couple of quick pictures out on site here just to give you a sense of what some of these elements may look like. If you're not familiar with exterior wall panels, you can see the picture on the right there as they're kind of going up. And then the picture on the left, I know, is just a rendering. Unfortunately, I couldn't get a shot directly of the building itself, but I think the overall goal here that we're trying to show is that, you know, it doesn't have to look like it's a prefabricated element. What we're trying to get at here and tell architects is that, you know, you can design it exactly the way you want it. And we just have to go in and make sure that our gaps and our locations for those panels are set up in a way that architecturally makes sense around what you've designed, so that we can put those in place and it look as beautiful as the picture on the left there once we're done. Second example I've got here for you is construction specialties. So I mentioned those stairs earlier. A couple more pics to kind of show you the stairs going up. These are a system that goes in place before the steel goes up. Really great system that allows us to remove any kind of temporary stairs or any flights that are needed before the stairs are actually in place for the steel. So this specific tower here, I think the superintendents were calling it the Stairway to Heaven, went up in a single day. Out on site, we had 2 of these with this particular project, and both of them went off fantastically. We had quite a bit of prefabrication around this project in general. They had very specific goals around prefabrication, which really pushed the envelope and allowed us to expand quite a bit around our knowledge and just overall scopes that we're able to do for life science projects. All right, next one here I've got for you is some of our interior wall scopes. We've recently looked at some robotics to help us put some of these in place for our larger walls. So all of it's pre-manufactured off-site. We've got our panel tables set up in the shop. Everything's quality checked, QC'd. We got labels and stickers on everything, production workflows. Everything that you would assume with a fully fledged prefabrication facility. And then the installation out on site, we were able to look at almost double in terms of what we could get from a stick build approach. So definitely something that we've been seeing quite a bit more of and trying to implement more as we get into some of these other projects. Prefabricated doors is another huge line for us here, just in the Richmond facility. We just recently finished this UVA project. I believe that one had almost 300 prefabricated doors. We actually had to build a holding room for them, more or less, just to make sure that as we got them done, because we got them done so much sooner than what the site needed them, we needed to have a place that we could store them where we wouldn't have any damage, we wouldn't have any issues from heat or condensation or humidity. With all of these either being painted or stained, we wanted to make sure they were as beautiful as they got out to the site as when they arrived to the shop. So we've created a space now where we can do just that. One of the larger items that we have as well is our strut ceiling system. So this is specific to our main advanced tech clients, but not just there. We've seen some of these as well in some of our healthcare facilities, where they have that overhead structure for things like our ceiling mounts or individual beds, the different bed hangers and attachments that they need beside the beds. It's really very versatile and something that we've been offering out to our other trade partners as well for additional hangers, or just the overall strut ceiling scope for our MEP trades to attach to within these data center spaces. I mentioned the vertical multi-trade rack earlier, so I'm going to grab a quick video here as well and kind of give you guys a sense of just what that looks like. Hopefully you weren't hearing that crazy music. So as you can see here, rather large assemblies that we were putting in place. These were, what was it, 42 feet 42 feet a piece, I believe, right around there. We had 4 individual shafts that we had to put these in 4 stories up each. So we did 16 of these overall vertical multi-trade rack assemblies. Really cool shots here of them going into place. Love showing this video. A lot of work went into that. A lot of people involved, but overall a huge boon to the site. This was one of those items that after the fact, we had several superintendents come around to us and just tell us how much they, really loved those going in place. It helped them around safety and quality, as well as reducing just the number of man hours that were being put in place at heights and that they didn't have to deal with anymore out on the site. And this is definitely something that we're looking to do more and more of as we see opportunities for this type of assembly going in place on some of our future projects. So there it is, just sliding right into place. Love it. Let me grab that back here real quick. Oh, where did it go? There we go. Okay. DBC also can do our structural framing members. So if we have a situation where we would need an approach to a project like that, we're able to rely on them as well. I mentioned the interior walls earlier, but those were just for data centers. Didn't want you to think we were putting these things up without any MEP in them. This is from Bay State Health up in Boston, where we included all of the individual in-wall devices around each of the head walls, the individual walls themselves that just had electrical devices in them, and was able to be very successful in terms of that overall installation and install. I believe there was over 250 panels on that one. The previous one that I showed you without any devices in it, that one had somewhere around 275. So really just kind of want to give you a sense of just, how large these potential projects can be. Oh, and you saw the outside of the pods. Wanted to give you a quick look on just what the inside of one of those may look like, minus the towels. Everything in this picture was there previous to them unwrapping and really moving this thing into place. So really just wanted to give you a sense of just how much is included in these pods as they're coming out and being put in place, and how much they're able to load up these floors and get everything ready to go before we move them in. And then I think one of the last ones I have here for you is one of our latest projects that we've had out of New Jersey, Farmadule with volumetric modules. To me, this is really the holy grail on prefabrication. These are large, think Lego blocks, right? They're about 20 feet by 40 feet. They include everything on the inside of them, all your equipment, all your finishes, all your overhead MEP, your flooring, your structure, everything is included in these. We just completed a project, as I was mentioning, in New Jersey. Wanted to share that quick timeline with you guys. Let me, if I can pull that one up. There we go. Just to give you a sense overall of just how fast these are going into place, right? So obviously sped up quite a bit, but gives you just an overall sense of how many of these are going in, how quickly they can go in, what all they include, as well as what they have in them, right? So this was a massive effort and undertaking. We had over 400 overall modules. All of them came in, and the only real issue we had was just going in and shaking out all the individual wall units. The structure wall units that get placed over the interior walls to cover up the MEP for that final finish look. That was really the only hiccup we had in the whole overall process, and really, great looking building as soon as we get it done. Great. Next, we got a modular pedestrian bridge. Definitely something that we've been seeing a lot more of. And something I'm really proud of here in VCU, downtown Richmond. This was a huge pick, massive lift. We were talking about potentially shutting down 2 roads over the course of several months. Through prefabrication, though, we were able to do this on night work and weekends, and really had the roads shut down for hardly any time at all to make this final pick and put these in place. So again, just another item that we're looking more and more of as we continue to look at, what potential opportunities may be out there. So with that, I think I'm pretty much wrapping up here, and that's all I really had to kind of give you guys. Hopefully that gives you a sense of what we do at DPR and how we do it and how we approach it in general, just around construction. And definitely look forward to any questions you guys may have around it, and see where the conversation takes us.
Yeah, thank you, Landon, for that. That was very interesting. I saw some applause, virtual applause come up and a few other things with some of the videos. I'll go through the some of the questions here. There's quite a few questions coming in, so I'll do my best to get through all of them. The other thing, I might supplement some of them. So the first one I saw come in was from a colleague, Gaurav, and he asked about the type of software you use, Revit, BIM 360, like the Autodesk platform, let's say, or other software. And I wanted to maybe ask if you could not only on what types of software systems that gets used within DPR, but elaborate on how vital it is for tolerance control and everything to run the VDC and the BIM models ahead of time. Can you maybe just elaborate on like that pre-con
Sure.
process a little bit and what systems you guys use?
So overall for our software, primarily Revit is what we're seeing just the majority of on our projects. But that's not to say that's all that's there, right? Some projects really require a little bit more specifics, getting down and dirty into the details. Some of our smart blocking is done in Inventor. A lot of the more specific individual one-off prefab snowflakes, I'll call them, we normally will have to take into Inventor, or some of our structural stuff will be through Tekla. Primarily Revit, though, we do use the Autodesk platform. We're moving more and more in our projects over to ACC, and that full BIM process that's happening ahead of time is really broken up around tiers in terms of just, hey, what is the lowest hanging fruit that's got to go in first, that's being coordinated all the way out to the larger items through a full BIM coordination process. And I can't say how important it is with prefabrication to have that upfront BIM VDC process that of these items going in place. Most of the tolerances around these are going down to the closest 1/8 inch. We try not to have anything out of tolerance beyond that, because then it just starts to get worse and worse and worse as we try to put these things together, if it's any worse than that.
Perfect. Yeah. And so 1/8 inch, that's like 3 millimeters up north.
Oh,
That's real tiny. Yeah, there's not much there. No, I just yeah, I was gonna test you on your conversion from imperial to metric.
you got me on that one, man. Sorry.
No, I'm just kidding. All right. So next was a colleague asking about industry partners in Eastern Canada. Is DPR? I think you mentioned that in previous calls with me that there are some partners that you guys have worked with in Canada. I don't know if on the East Coast or not, or
Yeah, so we have strategic partnerships with members like Amico is out of gosh, I forget where they're out of, but they're in Canada. We have Falkbuilt that we work with. We have a large format panel vendor, GCI. I forget the acronym, but it's one of those two that's out of Canada as well. I just recently actually went up and crossed through Detroit to go over and see them here recently. So yeah, quite a few in Canada, as well as some mass timber companies too, that we've been working with. So we've seen a couple of those definitely on the vendor side, in terms of just, hey, these are the products that we offer. Here's what we can deliver. And then us working to get them engaged in our projects.
Great. No, that's a good segue to the next question. One of our colleagues here, Dominic, she asked around, said that there's a lot of steel and concrete examples, and she was curious about wood projects. I thought maybe you could also elaborate on the sectors that you predominantly work into, because based on my experience, that can sometimes drive why you do steel studs versus 2x4s or whatever, depending on the type of building being built. So
Sure. So we don't do residential, and we stay away from anything that has wood construction unless it's mass timber. That's just kind of that line in the sand that we've drawn a while ago. So that's why you saw a lot of the light gauge steel and overall steel members and concrete that were in there. Now, that's not to say that we're not working on mass timber projects. I've personally been involved in a product development approach around a mass timber product. And that should hopefully be something that we see a lot more of going into the future, of a lot of these opportunities out on sites with our projects. How can we make this more sustainable? Is this a way that we can switch this individual item over to something that makes more sense in the long run?
great. That makes sense. And was there a specific reason in particular that led led you down the not using wood? I know, I just knowing DPR a little bit, I know residential is not the sector that DPR plays in, was there any particular reason? Or sometimes I know in the UK, fire was a major reason for the hesitancy.
That would definitely be before my time, for sure. But
Okay.
if anything, I would say it's probably has something to do around, potential litigation and things like that as we develop these out. And it could be something where wood is just not something our forte that we want to get involved in or engaged on. And we're really looking at, some of those larger commercial projects and office buildings and things like that don't normally include wood.
Yep, no, that makes sense. Thank you. Next question, I'm going to Andy here. Andy's asking, as a general contractor, if DPR has an in-house prefab system for building, do you also collaborate with other prefab companies, whether it's panel or volumetric, or is it viewed as by DPR as a potential conflict?
No, yeah, we reach out. Like I said, we have strategic partnerships with third-party vendors, as well as our trade partners that are coming onto our sites. They generally have. We're seeing a lot more means and methods around prefabrication, where this is just the way that they're going to do it because it makes sense, right? If you look at a lot of electrical companies nowadays, they're moving to prefabricated underground electrical conduit duct banks, right? So that's just one way I'm seeing the industry becoming more and more. It's just a standard. It's just the main practice that we're doing it as. We definitely don't see it as a conflict of interest. In some cases, in a lot of cases, with our SurePods and DBC company, we're actually providing pods and panels outside of the DPR project family companies and projects that we do. So we're definitely open to it, and we would love to potentially have a project where it is it's a full DPR everything that's going into place, but that doesn't necessarily mean it has to be one of our projects for sure.
Perfect. Thank you. Um, Sorry, there's more and more coming in. I'm trying to get through them all here. So what are your strategies and solutions for building official inspections of factory built volumetric, or do you bring them in, or kind of, I guess it probably might depend on the jurisdiction, or
It does, yeah. So it would
yeah.
depend on the jurisdiction and specifics around what we have. We have third-party inspections for our local facilities that are doing that type of work that they can call that in and have those individuals come over and review everything, go through everything. They have a very rigorous QC process that even includes a three-dimensional virtual walkthrough of the space as well that goes with that individual assembly going out to site. We're using ACC a lot so that potentially we can post that up there, and they are able to look at that, review it, see it ahead of time. But having those third-party inspections really comes down to the specific needs of the project as well as the state codes and mandates.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, I know in Canada, I mean, authorities having jurisdiction, it seems to vary province to province. And then if you're, bringing a pre-manufactured product from one province to the next can have its issues. And based on the little experience I have in the US, it seems like state to state can change quite a bit. Yeah.
Sure. Well, and
Um,
even the rules in each state. I mean, it really
yeah.
comes down to, very, very specific instances on each one of these projects. I mean, we've had really great success all over the place with our SurePods bathroom line. And now we've hit a wall up in Boston, right, where the unions just don't want to accept the product at all. Just because it's, even if it's being made in a union shop, it's because their union up there is not, putting their hands on it. So I mean, it could come down to anything, I guess is what I'm getting at around, why or why not a prefabricated element could potentially go into place.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's definitely a factor. What one question we had come in? So you mentioned residential sector is not a focus. Do you dabble in multi-unit high rise
Oh yeah,
or like
yeah.
mixed use commercial
Mixed use,
residential?
yeah, mixed
Yeah,
use. Yeah, we do. Actually, I just did an RFP here 2 weeks ago for a mixed use development. So definitely something we have more and more of. We feel like are coming up. These past couple of years have definitely been, more focused on the larger data centers, life science projects, things like that. But I think that's just because we haven't had a chance to bid on the others. So I think we'll see a lot more of that as we go into next year and beyond.
perfect. Here's a question from a colleague over in the UK, actually. So it just says, Stephen Whiteman's his name. Great examples of the range of possibilities for implementing prefab in all its forms and using multiple different forms in a single project. Just wondered if you have any hard comparative data on the benefits of prefab against your traditional projects, reduction in accidents or reduction in overall project schedules, for example.
Yeah, so that is definitely something that comes up quite a bit. Everything that we've been looking at up to this point has been around cost and schedule, and something that we've recognized over this past year is that I feel like where we're at now, just with our journey around prefabrication, is we're past the first adopters. Right now, we're moving into more of the okay, this worked. Let's try it again. Let's get into it. And now that's really giving us the overall backlog, I'll call it, or individual steps that we could potentially put into place to start capturing more of that specific data around the production that we're seeing out on site, the production that we're seeing specific to overall reductions around everything for projects that we can start really tracking and capturing. Right now, cost and schedule has been the big one that we've just really been trying to hone in on and show it's either cost neutral or cheaper in terms of what we're at. A lot of the stuff we were seeing right out of the gate was more expensive, and it was only saving us a month or two. So it's really taken some time to hone in specifically, like, these are the items that are going to make the most difference and are going to make the most sense and are going to be put in place. So nothing that I can share, but definitely more to come for sure. It's something we're focused on going into next year. So hopefully we'll have it soon.
Yeah, no, that's great. I'll mention our first webinar, Landon. It was with Cass Consultancy out of the UK. They were the owner's rep on a few larger developments, and they were able to implement some of those KPIs, and then as a result, contractually request the data from the subs and contractors, and they had the KPIs listed. It was it was an objective process as they were a third party, and they were able to demonstrate it. We're doing similar studies up here, and I was going to ask, I'm an advocate for any offsite process or method, and I recognize the benefits. At the same time, you were showing in some of your pictures a lot of like storage area and a lot of large facility spaces that do come with overhead, and there's an extra dimension of engineering that needs to be thought of pre-construction. So just curious, like, it has it taken a lot of time and lessons learned to get to the point where you hone in on a costing model and different things like that, and an estimating model. And the other thing I saw on one of your slides was there's a minimum quantity requirement, or one of
Sure.
them you said there's no minimum quantity, but some, we've seen some provincial governments here try to procure whether it's schools or housing or whatever, and have limited response. And part of it was it doesn't make financial sense for the manufacturers to change their lines for one project. So maybe that's an open-ended question, but just around costing and that stuff. Estimating.
Yeah. So this whole thing started, I feel like for us anyway, here in the Northeast, with a mega project, right? We had an anchor project that really allowed us to say, okay, let's go get a space. That initial space was like 5,000 square feet, right? And it was really associated with just that project itself. As we've grown and really, moved that out of that smaller space into the facility I'm in now, even this facility, we've been here going on for 4 years now. We've outgrown this one. So it's really been the cost modeling that we've set up right now is around overhead going into that space. The specific labor that we're charging out on the sites is to each individual project as those projects are coming in, as well as the materials. So the overhead itself currently is absorbed by the local business unit, the region itself. As I mentioned before, each one of those regions only has one of those individual facilities for self-perform within them. So it's really only that one that they're having to absorb. But each one of them is kind of on that same journey, right? As the region is growing, as the appetite for prefabrication is gaining traction, we're seeing larger and larger facilities, or a facility that meets the need of the region more than anything else. I've got 40,000 square feet now here, and going into 2025, I'm going to be busting at the seams. Luckily, our lease is coming up end here this year. So we've actually started looking at other spaces where we're looking to expand to about 100,000 square feet. That should put us right at where we want to be based around what we feel like our overall production capacity is. So hopefully that will be the last type of cost model that we'll have to put together around that overhead burden that's going back to our individual business units and regions.
Cool.
Does that answer the question? Great. Sorry, I know you kind of had an open-ended lot there.
Yeah, no, I asked like a dozen questions in a minute there, but yeah, no, that was perfect. And it is interesting. I think that there's a million questions to get through, but I do think that there's a lot of organizations in Canada that don't necessarily know where to begin, and there's uncertainty because it's new or potentially new to them. So just knowing, that it took time and it for you it took there's a mega project that got started, and then it's just iterations and iterations to improve. That's good to know. So I'm going to try to get through as many questions. We have about 3 minutes before I wrap up, and then we won't get through them all. If it's okay with you, Landon, I'll share them by email, and then we can blast the responses out to.
Sure.
To
Yeah.
Okay, great. So next one, I just want to ask, what kind of building efficiency and sustainability process targets are currently in place or in the near future? Might be different in the U.S. than Canada, but in terms of any like net zero targets or anything that are impacting the way that
and that is really project by project, I feel like, right? If it's, are they after a lead silver or lead gold or, whatever it might be as they get into those individual projects. The only thing that I've really seen around sustainability at this point have been some of the larger data center players in the market space, right? Where they're coming to us with, they have overall plans of these data centers that have to go into place that stretch out the next 10 years, right? And they already have specific timelines around these builds, and then even builds within that timeline that are more focused on, hey, can we be more sustainable? Let's try it with this iteration and see if it works, and then put it more into the mix for the next round of them that are coming up. Beyond that, the only other thing is something, I mentioned earlier with the life science client having a goal around prefabrication. But when we got on that project, though, we asked them to define, okay, what is it that's going to define that goal for you? You just say you have a goal of having, 75% prefabricated elements. What does that mean? Is it around cost? Is it the specific number? Is it, what is it? What is it that's going to, meet the need for you to have you feel like that goal was hit? Ultimately, we got them on man hours and said, hey, I can easily show you how many man hours you've got off site versus how many you've got on site. Compare the two and give you an overall percentage and say, hey, that meets the goal. But I think it's things like that. I just kind of throw that out to kind of give you examples of, maybe not specifically around sustainability, but we're seeing a lot more clients that have these types of goals, a lot of which either are loosely defined or not defined at all, that I feel like we're really trying to implement and put into place and help guide them as best we can, just with our understanding and knowledge and again, where they want to get to and what's their ultimate goal as well.
Yeah, no, that's great. What you said about like the 75%, say prefab or whatever, that's that pre-manufactured value calculation. If anyone was in our webinar and in October, there was the PMV thing is coming up more in the UK, I think, than in Canada right now. But how do you calculate that? Like you said, man hours versus cost of project versus whatever. And
yeah, where's the line, right?
Yeah,
I could potentially,
exactly.
I could look at it 5 different ways.
Yeah, and if you get more efficient by going prefab, then your labor hours will go down, right? Or you could have really high-end finishes in your pods that increase the cost. So then does that increase the percentage of prefab component? Yeah, that.
Right. Yeah. So you got to find that balance. You got to find what makes sense to them and something you can all agree on. Because as easy as you think it may be, as a GM to get information like that out of our trade partners, it's not always as forthcoming. And a lot of them aren't set up for prefab either, right? We had to very specifically work with them and say, hey, I need separate cost codes for your guys that are working labor at your offsite facility versus what's being done on site, so that we can pull that information easily, because to them, it was just all labor. So it's definitely, even again, that overall education with just everybody who touches it.
Yeah, 100%. I'm gonna wrap up just because I have another meeting to get to, and I don't want to take up more of your time. There's probably another dozen or so questions that we're gonna capture in an email and make sure we get those to everyone. Um, for folks on the call, that what we do is in the registration platform, we collect your email address. So for those folks, if you registered, you'll get the email. If you haven't, feel free to reach out to myself or send the research center a message either through LinkedIn or email, and we'll make sure that that you get the information. Thank you, Landon, for your time, especially 6 days before the the big day. Enjoy your holiday, and I know again there's a lot of questions, so it was a pretty popular one, I would say. So thanks again, and we'll chat soon.
Fantastic. Happy to be here. Happy holidays to everybody. And thanks again.
Okay, take care. See you,
Have a good
everyone.
one.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.